We had a pretty large bang associated with the caution and warning now. Okay, as we have an apparent serious oxygen leak.
4, 3, 2, 1.
Houston, we've had a problem. He's in a roll and he can't stop it. Performing an evasive maneuver. Okay, Houston, we've had a problem here. I think we need to do a little more all-weather testing.
Welcome to space.
Hello, listener, and welcome to Failure to Launch, the space history podcast where we take you through all the mistakes, failures, and explosions that made modern space exploration possible. We are your hosts, Quinn, he, him.
Chris, he, him.
Robin, she, her.
And a fresh Chris, he, him.
And today we're talking about Soyuz T-10A, that time a launch escape system rocketed a Soviet cosmonaut crew away from their burning rocket seconds before it detonated. We'll also be having a Q&A period at the end, talking to Robin about her work and answering fan questions. Now, Robin is an instrumentation and controls engineer specializing in ground and launch ops instrumentation. She supported the Artemis 1 mission as design engineer for the weather and instrumentation system at Launch Complex 39B. Robin, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
And I cannot wait to inflict these topics on a launch ops person. I've said it before. My attitude to bringing industry people on is that, like, podcast guests, it's good networking, you're sharing audiences and whatnot, but if I tell them an engineering or a FOD failure, they'll laugh at it. If I tell an industry person about these kinds of failures, I get to hear them die.
Yeah. If T-10A, if that's the one I'm thinking of, yeah, that one's going to be interesting.
This is thankfully a no one dies topic.
Mm-hmm.
Those are my favorite.
I love it when people don't die. That's my favorite thing to happen. In a ranking of people die versus people don't, I'm like generally on the don't.
My power fantasy is everyone lives.
I'm pretty sure that's an SCP of like no one can die anymore and life is terrible.
Isn't that just the plot of like several anime? Is resetting everything so that no one lives or no one dies? Excuse me.
I think you're right with that one.
How's everyone doing? I am back from the desert. My brain has cooked to the perfect consistency to write a bunch of podcast scripts that I think are just deranged enough to be entertaining.
Homogenized soup.
Yes. It's curdling in there.
It's percolating.
I've been stewing in, hang on, I gotta count the days here. I don't know, the last week I've not been sleeping a lot, so I just don't feel insane today, though, despite that. So, but if I am a little insane today, that's probably why.
Okay.
You have normalized.
Yeah, I was just trying to think of like what is ideal content, brain? How addled do you have to be like not in your right mind, but also at the peak of entertainment capacity for a podcast?
I would say that I would need to be sleep deprived, slightly starving, and on like my second or third Zevia worth of caffeine. Glenn, I was thinking because you went out to the desert and you're coughing, what if you have the
Baikonur Gigaflu?
Oh,
yeah, not Baikonur Gigaflu. No, I was thinking of the more fungal variety, like the stuff that you get in a dust storm.
I hope not.
It kicks up all the particulates. It's Valley Fever, right? Isn't that Valley Fever?
We've already established that this is podcast lung. All right,
yeah,
this is the thing I get like 5 minutes into every recording.
In your lung? What if you got a little lungus going on in there?
Yeah, now we have the podcasting lung and the cordyceps infection fighting each other.
They'll equalize. They'll just fight each other to extinction in my lungs.
And now we just need to get you a few sets of worms.
Just
RFK's brainworm.
Forget the microbiome.
Just because I think worms are funny.
Just turn your body into a terrarium.
Like, what a conceptually funny animal. That's just all I think about worms.
Just eating an entire little ant farm.
Mm-hmm. Selecting the ants that survive.
They call this podcaster tongue, and you have like an anteater tongue that you like eat ants with. I'm thinking about the Eric Andre bit where he's like when I die, I want to be taxidermied, and then I want it to say like I want them to like give me fangs and claws, and then he's like I want the plaque to read a talk show host.
Yeah, we need more like anatomically described podcaster. You know, we need to break this down.
Just like 1,000 years from now, you'll still be preserved, and that's what people think all podcasters.
Yes,
are like,
this is the archetypal podcaster. After I fall into a vat of amber or something.
Or I'm thinking about like dinosaurs now. Like they'll shrink wrap us. Like we won't be as like round as we are. They'll just shrink wrap our skin onto our skeletons. Like this is what they looked like.
I want the worst taxidermy job to be done to me. Just like one of the really, really scuffed ones.
I was at a museum recently where we try not to dox myself. I was at a museum recently where they were putting on a feline themed exhibit, and they just brought out a bunch of taxidermy from like the last 50 years. And some of them did not look like cats.
Was it like a ranked through the years, like the evolution of taxidermy as one man practiced and learned what a cat was? Dude, that would be an incredible movie. Like
that would be
such a great success movie of like a guy building up to becoming a professional taxidermist and just all of the horrible things he creates along the way.
Wasn't that just a meme back in like 2009? Or no, 2012.
Possibly?
It was Chuck Testa.
Oh yeah.
Oh no, that's a name I haven't heard in a long time.
They can be revived. I was curious. Suddenly, everyone is bringing back the "that's not what I'm called" meme from like 3 years ago, and I'm not complaining. It's a good one. I just don't know what triggered that.
Yeah, you think this is a podcaster? Nope, Chuck Testa.
Whoa!
Oh my god! You remind me of what the proper usage was.
The double whammy of hearing about an old meme and then having to realizing that you still have a little bit of your brain dedicated to remembering that old meme.
It's like losing the game.
Fuck, that one never got me. The game sucks. I hate the game.
Just the most rational 6-year-old at elementary school. I have not lost the game. The game is stupid. I refuse to play. Walks away from you.
Smells like copium.
Now, I was all-time champ. Now, keeping that same, fun, chatty vibe, I want to ask the group, have any of you ever heard of Soyuz 7K ST number 16L?
Absolutely not.
Nope.
Really?
Certainly not.
Really? It's a simple question. I am genuinely surprised at that. And you guys call yourselves people interested or working in the space field, and you haven't heard of Soyuz 7K ST number 16L.
I'm a hack and a fraud.
You describe it as though it's like, some bolt on a tertiary component on a
7K ST number 16L?
I told you I actively have to suppress any instinct to start searching for things as soon as you mention an episode topic.
Yeah,
I just forget.
That sounds like, oh, you know what? I remembered. That's my favorite transducer on the Soyuz.
My favorite explosive bolt.
It's right next to Val 13K.
Oh, it's the perfect spot for it. At the same time, I do have those, like, engineering has made it to the point where I do have those love-hate relationships with, like, random product numbers. 068383, I fucking hate those things.
I'm having a brainworm. I'm riffing again. So you know how, like, Disney has, like the Disney animators will do the thing where they have, like, the door with the number on it?
Yeah.
That's kind of like the Easter egg that they put in everywhere. What's that for engineers? What part and naming convention is the same on every device that an engineer that goes to Yale does or whatever? Like
brackets Rev 1, square brackets this one for
right,
sure.
Not like the fucking universal standard naming designations. That's just cheating. Like
I don't know of like common designations in like engineering parts. If you're talking about like product numbers or bombs or stuff.
Like shit fuck one, like everyone does that, like,
oh yeah.
I see references to Star Trek a lot. NCC 1701.
Oh,
especially from if you're reading older documents for fun, like I do.
Okay.
And it's there's references to character names, references to various just random things from Star Trek. I think it's mostly Next Generation or TOS that I saw. Not a whole lot of Deep Space Nine representation in my part numbers. I know.
So suddenly seeing a lot of like Enterprise references for some reason.
Maybe I'm going to crucify myself with that take because I'm not a huge Star Trek.
I don't know. Deep Space Nine is the best one for me.
I get that a lot.
I like Next Generation. I like Next Generation. I'm gonna like people are gonna hate me for this. I like Next Generation when stuff is happening, when there's some like big dynamic plot, but not when they go to a planet where everyone wears one of two hats and the people hate each other over which hats they wear, and then the crew figures out that, you know, they can just make peace by talking to them.
The alien race where half of them have black on one side, white on the other, and then the other half have it reversed. That was a Next Generation
What if
episode.
one of you just turned around? Then it would be the same. And roll credits. We're done. Peace achieved.
Just
Everyone
alternate
clap.
everybody.
No one can ever look face to face anymore. So getting back to this, the reason why people have probably not heard of Soyuz 7K ST number 16L is that this whole incident does not really have an agreed upon name. As we've talked about at length, the Soviets practiced only naming and publicizing their flights once they were safely in orbit. That way, if they failed, they could easily be covered up and a new mission could be given the name. Basically, in the Soviet space program, a mission designator wasn't assigned, it was earned, and the way you earned it was by being successful in reaching orbit.
You only get a name if you don't suck.
Yeah. This is basically the same thing as the Cosmos system, which we've talked about at length. Just a lot of very convoluted and honestly pretty effective methods at hiding Soviet space failures, which did happen very often, and it all kind of played into their propaganda effort to show how not only were they so far ahead, but especially like after the space race, they started really going all in on the, you know, we're the space station people. We're the people who are flying to space stations successfully 110% of the time. So these kinds of systems really helped with that. The mission we're going to be talking about today was supposed to be Soyuz T-10. It was supposed to fly on September 26, 1983, and carry a crew to the Salyut 7 space station for a 3-month duration stay. That didn't happen. And the Soyuz T-10 that went down in the history books would only fly about half a year later. The mission that we're going to be talking about is alternatively known as Soyuz 7K ST number 16L, after the spacecraft serial number, Soyuz T-10A, or Soyuz T-10-1. For the sake of simplicity, I'm going to be using Soyuz T-10A, but if listeners want to follow up on any of this, just remember that you may need to try all three names to actually find some good materials. Different people call it different things. Also, for this episode, I am going to be relying on a number of sources. Namely, an article on Soyuz T-10A by space historian and friend of the show Drew LePage, as well as articles written by Russian space journalist Anatoly Zak on his website Russian Space Web. As always, all links will be down below in the show notes.
The plan for Soyuz T-10.
So we're already right into some fun Soviet cover-ups of failed missions, which, you know, I hope our fans love.
Beautiful.
It comes as simple to them as breathing.
It is reflex. A Soviet space officials, if you look at his calendar for the past week, legally 70% of it did not happen. Me going through my calendar for the day at the end of the day with a black highlighter, just like nope.
Me explaining to my boss why my time cards aren't finished on Monday morning.
Your spouse goes off to work at the Soviet Space Agency, and then at the end of the day, a different person comes home with their same name, insisting that they're them. It's like, everything went fine. I am Evgeny.
Okay, wait, no, this is good. This is good because it's like I'm imagining the monumental system of the Soviet bureaucracy venom snaking another person to take your husband's place. where they extensively like gaslight him into thinking he's your husband.
Oh, so he believes it too.
so he believes it. So he like his entire personality changes because he becomes who he believes he is. Like, you know, this is like psychological torture. Like this is like extreme gaslighting.
They just
like,
get Winter Soldiered into it.
And you know, he truly believes it. And then you get to have you know, like your real husband is still out there somewhere, and then, you know, they'll meet each other one day, and your real husband will have to kill Big Boss. And
Isn't this just the plot of Severance?
I think so.
Oh, God.
I didn't know anything about Severance, actually.
Really?
But I mean, that makes a lot of sense. I'm not like a watcher. I don't watch anything
He's not the watcher. He's
I'm
He's a
not
producer,
I'm
goddammit.
Who watches The Watcher?
I'm not like a very big media consumer. Like I don't like watch a lot of shows or TV unless I'm like forced to. So
Through this show. Now, Soyuz T-10 was planned to be a launch to the Salyut 7 space station, launched just a year prior in 1982. This is noteworthy because Salyut stations were not built alike, and the program went through major changes in the 11 years between Salyut 1 and Salyut 7. We've already talked about the secret military Almaz stations that were thrown into the mix, that is Salyuts 2, 3, and 5. But the bigger thing here is that early Salyuts were not designed to support crews for longer than a few weeks. The plan was always to use these early missions to learn the necessary skills for longer duration stays and evolve as they went. Starting in 1977, Salyut 6 received all of the upgrades that the previous missions had wanted. The station had 2 docking ports, one at either end, so that crews could change over without having to abandon the station first. Like in earlier missions, what they would do is they would go into the station, they would live for a few weeks, and then they would leave, and then a few months later, someone else would come up. With 2 docking stations, they were actually able to have crews overlap a little bit. They were able to keep Salyut stations somewhat permanently occupied for long durations. And another thing is that these docking ports allowed the creation of a new kind of spacecraft, a cargo resupply spacecraft. This is the Progress cargo ship that the ISS still relies on today. This is basically just a Soyuz with all of the space for cosmonauts removed and a bunch of cargo thrown in, and it flies itself up like a drone. And with this, you would have a Salyut station with a crew Soyuz docked on one side, and then it could be periodically refueled, given new air, given new water, food, anything, through a visiting Progress spacecraft. Other improvements to both the hardware and the mission planning meant that short-duration crews could fly week-long missions up to visit a long-duration crew to help out with some large tasks. So there were also a number of missions where you have a crew staying for half a year, and they want to do a big repair, or they want to add a big new, a solar panel or something like that. And then a couple of cosmonauts will get sent up for a weekend trip with the sole goal of all right, get out there, do some spacewalks, come home. And finally, this new development, this ability to have these short duration crews go up and visit the long ones, this is also the start of the Intercosmos program that we've talked about, the Soviet kind of space carpooling program that is why a large chunk of the countries in the world right now have their first cosmonaut launched in the early 80s. This is all of the Warsaw Pact countries send people to Intercosmos. India, which we're going to talk about, sends people to Intercosmos. For comparison, the last mission to Salyut 5 had the crew live in it for almost 18 days. The first crew mission to live in Salyut 6 stayed up there for 96. Salyut 6's record would eventually be pushed to over 6 months, and its successor, Salyut 7, was being readied to go even further. Launched in 1982, its first crew, Expedition 1, set a new human spaceflight record of 211 days. So this isn't directly relevant to the disaster story, but I wanted to talk about it to give a sense of what was going on in the Soviet space program at the time, what their focuses were, and how quickly they were pushing space station development. In the course of 10 years, they had gone from crews going up for a couple of days to crews spending over half a year unsupported in orbit.
How big are these Salyut 7? How spacious is it?
I'm not certain of the interior volume. I can pull that up.
Well, I'm just picturing a Pringles can and having a number of Russian cosmonauts and guests just shoved in there like a clown car.
So
over 200 days.
I'm going to run this by you again, Quinn. This time you have to lie. You need to be like the Soviet bureaucracy lying about the space station by telling us how luxurious it is.
Oh, no. I do actually have an actual luxury answer because we are going to talk about this on the show in the future. But one of the really cool things that the Soviets do, or specifically one woman does with the Salyuts, is as people live up there for longer and longer, there's finally a realization that hey, maybe they should be living instead of surviving. And they bring in this interior decorator, this interior designer named Galina Balashova. You can buy her book. I highly recommend it. All of the sketches and whatnot that she designs are beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
And it is her stated goal that she wants to take these cosmonauts from surviving to living. And she designs the interiors of all of these spacecraft with an ergonomic and like aesthetic kind of view to it. Like they paint the walls and the ceilings separately so that cosmonauts always have a sense of like up and down, which is surprisingly crucial to morale.
Because
The
having a floor
design
is
is very
nice.
human.
Yeah.
It takes a woman to step up and do the work. Hell yeah.
Because otherwise it would just be equipment everywhere and guys who are slowly being driven insane by it, but who are also too proud and ignorant to like actually say that.
I'm going insane, but I have no idea why.
Just getting shouted at for accidentally touching something.
Why am I seeing ants everywhere?
Now I'm thinking about it because it's like, this is still the era of right stuff guys. So it's like you're sending dudes
Somewhat.
up there who have probably no concept of like that kind of artistic design stuff and its effects on human psychology.
Yeah.
Like,
So they're probably completely ignorant of what is happening, but they're suddenly like happy and at peace in space. It didn't always work. The Salutes are where we had like several orbital fights, where like cosmonauts perfected the art of zero-G combat.
I mean, look, they're still doing science. It's just
Yeah.
not the kind that
human
Mission Control
kinematics
wanted.
taken to the
Yeah.
extreme.
How do bruises form in zero-G?
Let's check. But to circle back around to your question, for a crew of 2, which would be what a normal long-duration Salute crew would be, they weren't super spacious. It would basically, the interior of a Salute would basically be like a long, thin kind of room, like a hallway. But then you also have the Soyuz orbital module, you have the Soyuz crew module, and it wasn't uncommon for like, that provided a crucial thing for morale, which is the ability to go into the other room, which is something that, for example, Skylab didn't really have. Like, you could go into the other room and slam the door because you don't want to deal with the other cosmonauts' shit anymore.
The luxury of actually being able to slam a door or something I
Yeah,
have not considered being taken away from me by my environment.
The luxury of being able to say, I'm going to my room and have it actually mean something.
Just angrily floating away.
It does kind of take something out of it if you have, shouting at a guy and then angrily hand-holding your way out of there slowly.
Slamming the door so hard that you
undock.
provide the station with a new 2-degree tilt, like.
Oh, it would. Like, what am I thinking of? I think it was one of the Almazes. It was the one that, it was, I think Salute 3 was the one with the gun on it, where they were worried that if they fired it, it would literally just shake the station apart.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, no, it was also Salute 1 because they had the treadmill, but they realized if they used the treadmill too much, the solar panels would start, and I quote, flapping.
I have the mental image of ground control just watching the RCS fire as they're getting into a massive fight.
The thrusters are desperately trying to fight Evgeny on the treadmill. I don't know why Evgeny has just become my, default Soviet cosmonaut guy. He was also on the ground team the last couple of episodes. I don't know, dude gets around.
Lots of Evgenys around here.
Now, I also wanted to provide some context for the Salute to let you know just how fucked the crew of today's episode is going to be. Just the unluckiest motherfuckers on and off the planet who don't die, brackets. Despite all of this new technology, or maybe because of it, Salute 7 had a lot of teething problems. It was constantly breaking down. It was an incredibly cutting-edge spacecraft, and accordingly, the crews spent a lot of their time tracking down software and hardware bugs. The most major of these came in April 1983 with the launch of Soyuz T-8. Cosmonauts Vladimir Titov, Gennady Strekalov, and Alexander Serabov.
There he is again.
It's Gennady, not Evgeny.
This time we didn't get a new Evgeny out of the Evgeny factory this time.
We had to settle for a Gennady instead.
Quinn, I was gonna interrupt you if you fucked up a third time before, and then I was gonna insert the Evgeny factory bit, but it just came to mind. I'm like, we have so many of them on this show that it's like there must be a factory for them. I immediately think of like the Workers and Resources music.
So these three guys, they are launched on Soyuz T-8, and they are meant to be the station's second long-duration crew. However, after launch, when they drifted up to the station to dock, they ran into problems. First, their Soyuz was damaged on launch. The fairing, whenever it was deployed, like the aero cover that protects the Soyuz, it had ripped off their entire docking antenna on its way out. If you do not know, these are sets of antennas that are on both a spacecraft and a space station's docking ports, and they work to kind of align the two to make sure that they're actually that they're properly aligned for docking. They handle, they kind of act like an airport's guidance system to an airline on its way in. So the crew did not realize that their antenna had been ripped off. They thought that it had just deployed and was not locked in place. And their solution to this was to spend about half of their RCS fuel wiggling the spacecraft to try and force the antenna to lock into place. And that did not work.
Just wiggle it. Come on.
It was less wiggling and more because the antenna would swing up in an arc. So they would try and swing the nose down and then violently swing the Soyuz up to try and force the antenna to swing with it. Which did not work. The antenna and its entire, a good chunk of the spacecraft had just been ripped off, and they had no way of knowing.
Say what's up next, causing astronaut leaving the airlock, just fuming.
Yeah, just noticing that the entire orbital module is gone.
Oops.
Oops. When that did not work, they attempted a visual docking with the station, but thankfully called it off. The two spacecraft were in pitch darkness, and it was decided that forcing a docking had too much risk of just them crashing.
They were gonna, as the kids say, raw dog it.
Hell yeah.
Don't worry, I got this. Notch 8 just right into the station.
After 2 days of frustration and disappointment, Soyuz T-8 deorbited, and the crew was safely recovered in Kazakhstan. So they do not get their chance. A few months later, Soyuz T-9 docked successfully with the station and became Expedition 2. Quote, "In the meantime, Titov and Strekalov from the Soyuz T-8 mission were quickly recycled to the top of the flight roster to take advantage of their training for the next mission to Salyut 7 in late September. The crew of what was to be called Soyuz T-10 were supposed to spend a month on board the space station, with Lyakov and Alexandrov performing EVAs to upgrade Salyut's solar panels and other systems. The Expedition 2 crew would then return to Earth in late October, leaving Titov and Strekalov to finish their 3-month stay on Soyuz 7 as the Expedition 3 crew. So these dudes who go up to space, they are not able to dock, they land, they're disappointed. 2 of them are immediately recycled towards the next mission, Soyuz T-10. So going into September, that is our situation. Also, the crew size was dropped to 2 instead of 3 because the station had been boosted to a higher orbit and the Soyuz needed to ditch some mass to reach it. So, rip your heaviest bozo on the crew.
You're fat, get off my ship.
All these guys just standing on scales, and Alexander Serabov, morosely steps on, looks at the number. Yeah, sorry, Alex, you're too fat to fly.
Shouldn't have had that last astronaut ice cream.
God,
I'm sure Serabov was arguing no, we should do it in the morning after my morning shit. This is unfair. We just had lunch. Guys, come on.
You had to blast me with astronaut ice cream.
Just everyone's going to lunch right before. They're trying to goad each other into eating.
Alexander Serabov watching the launch. Oh, he's actually going to wind up getting so much, he's so happy to not be on this mission, but he's just crying watching the launch, eating an entire Ben & Jerry's tub of dehydrated ice cream.
So dust?
Yeah, just eating a brick.
He's slobbering on a brick of ice cream.
Oh, that would rule. If they sold volume astronaut ice cream, just a couple of inch just chunk of it, I'd buy that.
Let me just head on down to Costco real quick.
So we've got a mission commander, Vladimir Titov, whose first mission was the disappointing Soyuz T-8, as well as a flight engineer, Gennady Strekalov, who had previously done a 2-week stint on Salyut 6. Both of them are freshly trained and eager to get back up there and begin their 3-month stay on the space station. That did not happen. And to explain why that did not happen, I need to take a minute to explain Launch Escape Systems, or LES.
Launch Escape Systems.
A launch escape system is pretty much what it says on the tin. It's a system worked into a manned or sometimes unmanned spacecraft to get the crew to safety if there's an incident before or during launch. Now, spacecraft tend to have all kinds of different contingency plans depending on when during launch they need to escape. They might ride it out on a suborbital trajectory before splitting off the rocket. They might make it all the way to orbit before making an emergency crash re-entry. In the rankings of these contingencies, launch escape systems are generally reserved for the get me the fuck out of here scenarios, which is something they do quite well.
Just yeet me as hard as you can.
This is I don't want, this is like, Mom, please pick me up, I'm scared levels of hitting the red button. Kennedy does not want to go to space anymore, and he's slamming that fucking button.
Stop the ride. I want to get off.
Exactly, yeah.
Mom, I'm scared. Come pick me up.
I mean, she technically could, because if you're firing an LES, you're going to only wind up like a kilometer or so from the launch pad. Your mom, who is probably there to watch the launch, could pick you up.
Oh, here I was imagining the LES being in orbit and then them successfully descending from orbit. And I'm like, Grandma is attached to a rocket in the station wagon and she's going to come up to get you, you know, like.
Yeah, like they fully have the Soviet station wagon with your grandma in it hung under the hip helicopter as it comes out to recover you, because that is the only way Gennady Strekalov will calm down. Now, technically, you can escape your launch system in any number of ways. Vostok and Gemini spacecraft famously had ejection seats, while the shuttle famously got rid of its ejection seats and encouraged astronauts to manually exit the door and just skydive their way to safety. Most launch escape systems, however, have taken the form of a tower mounted on top of the rocket. Some also have them mounted inside the capsule, and this is generally kitted out with several small rocket boosters.
No, I've just got the mental image of one of the boosters misfiring in the, what is it?
Yanking it to the side.
It just starts pinwheeling.
Well, that is actually a thing. These rockets are not symmetrical. They are designed to pull harder to one side, because your goal, like if you are trying to get away from your rocket's engines are probably still firing. You don't need to get ahead of it. You need to get out of its way.
Just going straight up and landing back in the fire.
It's the Prometheus school of running away from things.
Just run straight ahead.
And LESs do the smart thing. Instead of pulling you up and away, they yank you sideways at like 17 Gs. A good LES
17?
will get you to Mach 1 in 5 seconds.
Oh, that's awesome.
Which is a lot. Or I'll say plus 1 Mach, because you're already going pretty fast. You're already under Gs, and then add 17 Gs to that.
And I'd imagine astronauts in this era are adrenaline junkies already. So the temptation to just get the biggest thrill.
Yeah. Which is also possibly why cosmonauts and astronauts did not have the option of activating their own LESs. This was not something they had a big red button for.
It's too tempting.
In the event of a launch failure, failure to launch, if you will, the spacecraft will fire explosive bolts to free itself from the rocket, and the launch tower will burn its boosters, physically tearing them the fuck out of there so quickly that the rocket can't hit them as it flies by. Basically, instead of having an ejection seat for the astronauts or cosmonauts, the entire thing has an ejection seat now.
Just give me the ejection seat on crack.
Evolving your craft design so that it is now majority ejection seat.
Yes.
This is my spacecraft, and this is my spacecraft's ejection seat.
Imagine getting passed by your own rocket.
Oh, that could be a way. Like, I know missiles in silos, they get ejected out before launch. So that does make sense. We can do this.
What, just a cold launch?
We can make an ejection system for the missile to get it, or for the rocket to get it to altitude and make it launch easier.
Just the world's largest gas generator.
Now, the Soviet LES has been around as long as the Soviet spacecraft and rocket have, and it's gone through a lot of iteration over the decades. The first generation LES was approved by Sergei Korolev all the way back in 1965. The second generation was actually stolen from the N-1 lunar rocket program. They just took the design and slapped it on the Soyuz. And modern Soyuz rockets fly the third generation design, which only has 4 main nozzles. As far as how it operates on a Soyuz, the spacecraft has an advanced set of diagnostic sensors on the lookout for all kinds of likely launch problems, which basically feed data into a whole bunch of if statements in the spacecraft's computer. For example, if the gyroscopes measure too much pitching and rolling, fire the LES. You're probably spinning out of control. If a booster separates before the expected number of seconds, fire the LES. If the spacecraft suddenly experiences weightlessness way too soon, fire the LES because you've just lost all thrust.
It's something similar for Artemis. We had a bunch of different situations that would trigger the LES. One of them, the one that comes to my mind, is if the redundant lines, sort of like resistant lines between the booster and the core stage separate, and you had confirmed 2 out of 2 failure, the automatic destruct unit would activate, and the core stage would send the signal to abort the Orion capsule.
Hell yeah.
And activate the LAS, and meanwhile the boosters would self-detonate.
It's funny that you mentioned that, because my main point of contact with this kind of system before was the APO self-destruct system that we talked about a while ago. The one that used a similar amount of if statements, but its result was exploding its dog cargo, because they did not want those space dogs falling into the wrong brackets Chinese hands.
Jesus Christ.
This device will kill a dog so quick.
If you are veering towards Chinese territory, detonate the dogs. If one dog is barking a little too loud, detonate.
Did they just a bomb collar for your small animal?
Don't tell the housing associations that this is an option.
Your poodle was too loud. Time to go.
The Soviet space program was just like the Saw series, except for small, yappy, kind of like Yorkies.
Khrushchev's just on the radio. I want to play a game.
It just appears on a little screen in front of the dog.
Sergei Mission just absolutely jackhammering that button that just says "kill the animals."
You stole the sandwich off of the picnic table.
They didn't have picnics.
Hitting it so hard, a random dog in placettes just reduced to atoms.
What do you mean they didn't have picnics? They had a roadside one.
Ooh.
I was going to say I don't know Stalker, but I do know Stalker. I just don't have a good reference or joke teed up to kind of go off. I'm sorry, Chris. I let you down.
I'm thinking about the concept of the rocket blowing itself up because its redundant systems become hypo-redundant, like...
I hate how fixated I am on exploding dogs now.
Yeah, it does tend to stick in one's head. So another thing about the Soyuz LES system is that it can also be fired from the ground. You have a physical line connecting to the rocket for like diagnostics. You can fire the LES through that, but you can also fire it through radio signals from observation points on the ground.
Or Oleg with incredibly long lanyard.
It's a fuse, and you just light it from the launch control office and watch it go. So under proper operation, the LES can rocket a Soyuz capsule more than 1.5 kilometers off the ground, which is needed because you need to be able to open the parachutes. If you pop your spacecraft like 10 feet in the air, you're not doing anyone any good.
Or straight up and just landing right back at the scene of the crime.
It is perfectly right back onto the rocket, like even the bolts realign.
And then your ejection seat fires you into the fire.
Also, if you've ever wondered why Soyuz rockets have grid fins mounted on the outside of the fairing, this is why. Quote, in 1965, developers of the escape system stumbled upon a new serious problem. As it turned out, collision-free separation of the entire payload fairing from the service module of the Soyuz, which remained on the rocket, was practically impossible. After a series of brainstorming sessions, engineers split the payload fairing into top and bottom sections. In the emergency, the top section would fly away with the escape rocket and the crew compartments, while the bottom section surrounding the service module would remain in the rocket. To increase the aerodynamic stability of the shortened escape vehicle, it was equipped with 4 folding stabilizers. So basically the way the LES works in the Soyuz is it doesn't take the entire fairing or even the entire spacecraft. It rips the crew compartment off and half of the fairing with it.
I just had a thought, Quinn, somewhat unrelated, but the F-104 Starfighter.
Did it rip things off?
Fun fact, in the intro video, the plane that's shooting the missile that's downing the drone, that's a Starfighter. But the Starfighter, I just remembered, has a very funny ejection system, or at least the initial variant did. Like they I'll get to it.
Okay.
They changed it, but the original variant of it, because the plane has like a T-shaped tail, which would make traditional upwards ejection systems somewhat
sketchy.
Difficult.
Oh,
yeah, a little
how many
sketchy.
people had their feet cut off trying this?
So it had a downward ejection system, which sounds about as good as you can probably imagine it being when you are flying a test aircraft several hundred feet off of the ground. But that was just something I thought of because I'm like, man, like, how quirky can an ejection system be? And it's like, well, like a 50% success rate is better than 0. So
Yeah.
downwards ejection it is.
And by 50%, you mean 50% of your pilot will survive.
No, so two things. Number one, it's going to snap your neck on the way out so you can't be captured, but they can recover your body. And two, what happens if this thing accidentally goes off on the field when you're just like taxiing? You just get shot into the ground at Mach 1.
I know there was a Soviet bomber that did a similar thing, and yeah, they ran. It was the one that ran alcohol through its cooling system, and everyone just drank it. They also had the downward ejector seat.
That was like every Soviet plane.
You're telling me that the vehicle whose crew would drink the alcohol from the vehicle was also the vehicle with the downwards ejection seat?
Yes.
I love the idea that they're living inside of it. They just like tap the fuel lines like they're ants with an aphid, like.
And then it just kind of like squirts some at them.
Their plane is one massive alcoholic juice box. But no,
they just have one of those like hamster water dispensers in the cockpit.
The ground crews at all of the bases that get stationed to, it's like the ice cream truck arriving, like.
But no, so what is it? If I'm not
Everyone
mistaken,
just running out with silly straws towards the bomber.
Just piercing the skin and then just drinking the fuel.
Oh, it's like a Capri Sun.
I was gonna say it's like a Capri Sun.
Wait, quick. It's like the nematodes drinking up SpongeBob's house.
Have you ever seen a plane just start turning into a raisin? But no, for what is it? If I'm not mistaken, for all of those planes, because almost every Soviet plane used what was basically very high grade vodka for cooling, because it evaporates.
What do we have
nice.
around?
But for the ground crews, it was more prestigious the larger your plane, because the more vodka you could siphon off.
Quinn, it's the closed economy, so it's the planned economy, excuse me. So it's like we have to scale up production. Like there needs to be bigger numbers.
This is why the bomber gap happened.
So again, it's like you start at the smallest level in the Soviet economy of farming. So we just have so many potatoes now. We need to use them for something. Vodka, and then refine it further, and then we have high quality, and then we can use that as a coolant liquid. It's what we got. We got to use it.
It was what is it called? It just used an evaporator, and it ran 40% ethanol.
What you were saying about the more prestigious, the bigger the plane, I'm picturing some like ground crew, some technician like going to his CO. Please, sir, may I have some more? I can't even get drunk off my MiG. It's like the tiniest little thimble of alcohol.
But I have this wonderful line. Numerous cases of Tu-22 crews drinking the coolant mixture and becoming paralytically drunk.
Hell yeah.
To a crackdown.
You're just like mid-war. Dude, that could easily be like one of those like a Soviet bomber breaches NATO airspace and just keeps flying, doesn't respond. All of the crew are fully passed out at their seats.
What, just the one pilot? Imagine drunk driving this enough. Also, what is it? Another fine standing tradition, much like Russian spacecraft, it also had the poking stick.
Hell
for
yeah.
buttons.
Oh, I love the Soyuz pokey stick. On the other hand, what if they made a spacesuit with a really, really long index finger? Like, what if one guy just had an ET finger on his spacesuit?
No, it has the, No, they're just using these to hit all the buttons.
The sticky hand.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Imagine trying to smack a switch with that hitting the wrong one and just getting
watching flames lick up the side of my spacecraft as my crew member misses once, twice, 3 times.
The sticky hand is one of my favorite artifacts.
Getting buried with the ceremonial sticky hand.
Help, I've got the sticky hand stuck on the inside of my helmet.
One of my favorite stories will be always be Chris Hadfield nearly drowning in Fruit by the Foot.
What?
Because they had basically, like, imagine Fruit by the Foot. Like, if you've ever been a kid and taken a Fruit by the Foot and like balled it up into one solid chunk.
That's the only way to eat it.
Of course. imagine that, but imagine it's the entire size of like a Kit Kat bar. And imagine it is now sitting in your space helmet about an inch from your mouth. And that's your kind of like energy bar that you can eat in the spacesuit if you're on like a long EVA, because EVAs can be upwards of like 8 hours. But they also have a little water tube. They have the hamster water feeder thing right by your mouth. Problem, that thing leaks, or it did leak in Chris Hadfield's helmet, causing it to cover the fruit by the foot and create a floating amorphous choking mass inside of his helmet that he could not reach.
Screams muffled by just the water.
Yeah, it's just like the blob has been unleashed inside of your helmet. Good luck.
The worst ball gag.
Your crew walking out of the ship.
I'm gonna die, and it's gonna be delicious.
When you keep attacking me with space food ideas, and it's just like, first you hit me with the tube food, but now you're hitting me with
the goo food.
I could be eating a brick of fruit by the foot. Like,
yeah, with a solid risk of it turning on you.
Yeah.
Getting locked out of the ship because the crew thinks you've like developed a new space parasite. No, we have to keep you out there.
I want to be eating.
Looks
I want
exactly
to be eating
like an
the
alien
fruit brick.
face hugger, except it's just like got all kinds of like fun fruity colors on it.
And it
has fun
tasty
fruity
as
colors
hell.
and real fruit chunks in it. I need that in my life, you know? I love a fruit gummy with texture, dude, you know? Because it's got the fruit stuff in it.
I wonder if they sell gummy face huggers.
Hello, listener, and welcome to the mid-reel ad. If you enjoy Failure to Launch, more bad space history, and you want to hear more of it more often, there is an option, the FTL Patreon. Signing up at any tier gets you access to monthly bonus episodes and Q&As, and joining an elevated tier gets you even more content, like Chris-narrated minisodes. If that sounds good, you can sign up at www.patreon.com/failure to launch. And now, back to the episode.
The near disaster.
Now, the preparations for the mission went as expected. The spacecraft Soyuz 7K ST number 16L was mated to the top of its booster, YU 15363. Also, I don't know if I'm giving the serial numbers for historical accuracy to seem like we have more historical accuracy, or just because I think they're fun to say.
Why not both?
Yeah, honestly. The rocket was wheeled out to the launch site in Baikonur and lifted into its tulip cradle for a midnight launch. The rocket was fueled, the checks completed, and the countdown started. Everything working as planned.
The way that Robin said that, like, you know, like, why do you have to, like, you know, you don't have to say, like, the whole name the whole time, made me think about you have to call any engineering thing by its full name, because it's like calling a demon by its full name. It gives you power
the true
over it.
name
So
of this booster.
if you speak the true name,
of this ball.
Me going up to the booster as it's like on fire, chanting YU 15363, calm thyself, machine.
You just hear a roar back as
It
the
burns
field
faster.
ignites somewhere.
Like a demon's face emerges out of the fire.
it has no choice but to obey you, because you spake its full name, you know. Like,
This is Parsons shit. We're just doing Jack Parsons again.
Yeah, I was going to say draw a salt circle at the launch site,
Prevent
but
it
I
getting
couldn't
out.
remember what launch site this was at.
This would be Baikonur, Kazakhstan. So
Baikonur.
a lot of
Okay.
salt and a lot of sand everywhere.
And if you're parsing something else.
What if we found out that, like it was actually picked because it was some kind of like Hellboy occult World War II, like they found a demon of fire underneath Baikonur and thought like, this is the Promethean flame we need to get Yuri into orbit. The gods will only be appeased by our freakiest child being strapped into the Vostok. So yeah, the countdown is started, everything is going to plan. And then, 90 seconds before liftoff, something goes wrong. An engine valve in one of the Soyuz's side boosters failed, allowing pressurized nitrogen into the rocket engine's turbo pump. Working normally, pumps like these are what forces fuel and oxidizer into the combustion chamber. They can't just rely on gravity. They need so much volume going in. The nitrogen, however, forced the pump to spin up, and without any fuel to actually push, it accelerated so much that it broke. It shattered the pump housing, and it started a fuel leak in the booster. Kerosene started to pool under the rocket, and a minute later, ignited. With less than 30 seconds to go on the countdown, the Soyuz T-10A booster was now on fire.
Huh.
Yeah, yeah. Things escalate quickly with this story. While it started with a small leak, it was only a matter of time before the heat set off the entire booster. Because even the parts that aren't leaking, they are now bombs.
Oh no, this isn't a booster. It was made in a factory.
A bomb
factory. They're bombs.
Now, the fire was picked up on quickly by ground crews, but by the time launch director Alexei Shumilin ordered the LES activated, the fire had already melted through all the ground control cables. So these are what would normally send the signal, like these are diagnostic cables. Fire just melts right through them. The launch control station couldn't send their manual command.
Yeah, they need a Yevgeny with the incredibly long lanyard.
Well, hold that thought. Sitting in their Soyuz, Titov and Strekalov couldn't activate the LES either. And while they didn't know about the fire, they did report feeling a lot of weird vibrations coming up the rocket. Guessing what was about to happen, Titov is heard ratcheting down his harnesses and suggesting that Strekalov do the same.
We're gonna get yeeted really fucking soon.
Yeah, like, hey buddy, just be ready for this.
Fasten your seatbelts.
On a scale of 1 to 10, we are gone.
Yeah, what's the opposite of Poyekali? Like, we are not going.
Or we're about to go
Yeah.
really fast.
Our flight's gonna be very short and very quick.
One thing I forgot to mention about the radio pad abort method, the backup, it required 2 separate commands to be sent from 2 separate observation posts within 5 seconds of each other. Otherwise, it wouldn't work. The rationale for this was to prevent accidental LES firings. So they
If one person hit the big red button, now you have to have 2 people hit 2 separate big red buttons.
Yes.
Simultaneous within 5 seconds of each other.
Yeah. And I don't know the details, but I'm going to take a wild guess and say that communications probably weren't great. We're also going to get to it, but Alexei Shumilin, the launch director, in order to get to, like, he's got the LES button in front of him as he's watching this. In order to get to the radio button, he has to open a door, run down a hallway, open another door, and then hit that button.
More doors. Fantastic.
And that is only if the other guy on the other side of Baikonur also happens to hit the button at the same time. This is not a great system.
You mentioned the button thing initially, and my brain immediately went to our button, comrade. We need to make sure everybody has a red button.
It's a voting system. If 50% of people, 50 plus 1% of people vote to fire the LES, it will fire.
This goofy Rube Goldberg system.
Watching the fire lick up the side of the rocket as I desperately try and, like, get through the sequence on my bop it to activate the LES. Just like I keep fucking up the pullet, or the other guy is like a fraction of a second or 2 ahead of me in Dance Dance Revolution, so we cannot save the crew.
You and the guy at Baikonur have to be in perfect unison, like Pacific Rim, in order to operate the
you have
LES.
to be drift compatible.
Yeah, the crew died because I didn't love the other guy enough.
Or it's like the fusion dance in Dragon Ball Z.
Yeah. So I don't know the exact second-by-second chain of events here. What I do know is that it took more than 10 seconds from the alarm being raised for both radio commands to be sent, and another 1.2 seconds for the LES to process those commands and fire. It pulled the crew to safety less than 3 seconds before the entire Soyuz detonated.
Oh.
That is how close they came.
Jeez.
That is how fast Alexei Shumilin had to fucking sprint. Like, if they had messed up, these guys, this would not, like, jokes aside, this would be a people die episode. This comes incredibly close to killing people.
Yeah, they almost got mulched.
Now they're just, their backsides are just a little toasty.
Yeah, the booster is actually what popped them out of there, the explosion. Like a champagne cork.
It's like a nuclear pulse propulsion.
Yeah.
It's just a bunch of bombs.
Quote, the LES with the Soyuz orbital descent modules encased in their launch shroud had accelerated to Mach 1 in just 5 seconds, subjecting the crew to peak accelerations of 14 to 17 Gs. Once at an altitude of 650 meters, aerodynamic brakes were deployed and the descent module was released from the launch shroud. The Soyuz descent module jettisoned its heat shield and deployed its fast-opening reserve parachute for the quick descent back to the ground. Titov and Strekalov landed softly after 5 minutes and 13 seconds of flight, some 4 kilometers from the burning launch pad, where they were quickly recovered by recovery crews. Their first request was for a cigarette, and they were offered a shot of vodka. which I'm choosing to imagine was from the spacecraft's cooling system.
I was just going to say, it's like they just opened up the keg.
The recovery crews are just ignoring the cosmonauts. They just open up the side panel and pull out just holding a pitcher underneath.
Just a freshly tapped tank.
Oh, yeah.
It's fine vintage, this one.
I was going to say, it didn't age very well. It was pretty cool. It didn't get its time in space, but...
a bit shaken.
Yes, it's a shaken, not stirred martini. Vodka martini.
So this is justifiably considered an incredibly close call and a near disaster that was prevented at the last second by the ground crew and the LES. At the same time, 10 seconds is a fucking eternity when it comes to mashing the abort button. Understand that I am not trying to blame the ground crew here. Problems like this are almost always down to the institution and how the system was set up. If your system is so Swiss cheesy that human error can cause big disasters, it's the system's fault.
Mm-hmm.
Also, not to mention the fact that, again, the launch crew guy, like, the button was not right there. He had to leave the room, sprint down a corridor, and then hit a different button.
Yeah, that is asinine.
If the main command line had been in a place where it couldn't have been melted, the crew would have been rocketing to safety a full 15 seconds before the explosion, instead of 3. While the crew were saved either way, I hope people appreciate how close this situation came to being the first loss of a crew during the pre-launch countdown. If you consider different lethal space disasters, like Challenger explodes on the way up, Soyuz 11 is lost while in space, Columbia disintegrates on the way down, and Soyuz 1 is destroyed on landing, there has yet to be a lethal accident that happens during, like, immediately before or during takeoff. Although Apollo 1 was on the ground, but that was a dress rehearsal for a flight.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, this was very close to being that. This was very close to 2 cosmonauts dying during, like, right at liftoff. Now, angry time. As per usual Soviet doctrine, the launch failure was covered up and the mission name Soyuz T-10 applied to the next mission down the line. However, and this is a bit of a good turn from our previous topics, facing public scrutiny and an active rumor mill that was basically just saying, the crew's dead, they got super mulched, the Soviets were actually forced to admit to the launch failure a month later. They even publicly showed off Titov and Strekalov at a Red Square parade to prove that they were still alive. Brackets, this did not prevent the rumor mill.
But what if they just...
Well, it's because they have the history of just sending in a random guy and renaming him as Strekalov and
That's what
Titov.
I was going to say. What if they
two
pulled
different
out...
dudes.
They already have... Again, they already have the labyrinthine and absolutely gargantuan mechanism to
pump out more Evgenis.
To Winter
to
Soldier,
pump out
New
more
Yevgeny.
Evgenis and then venom snake them into your husband. So, like, they have to use it because they already have it. It's so much easier than just admitting that you lied. Like, it's just...
I could also easily see them saying, like, oh yeah, Titov's right here, and then they walk out other cosmonaut German Titov.
Give us a second. We have to decant another astronaut.
As for after the disaster, both men remained active and distinguished cosmonauts. Titov would fly 3 more times on Soyuz TM-4 as well as the shuttle missions STS-63 and STS-86. All 3 missions were to the Mir station, and Titov retired with a grand total of 387 days in orbit, which is pretty up there. He also later went to work as a director of space at Boeing. While Gennady Strekalov missed out on Soyuz T-10, he was quickly back in the trenches, flying to Salyut 7 on Soyuz T-11, along with crewmate Rakesh Sharma, the first Indian in space. Although everyone called him Ricky, which I thought was cute.
Aw.
Yeah. Strekalov later flew on Soyuz TM-10 with Japanese journalist and friend of the show, Toyohiro Akiyama, the angriest man in space.
Let me have a cigarette, please.
Also, yeah, the exact same thing that Strekalov said when he landed. So yeah, Strekalov was on that mission with Toyohiro Akiyama, and he was also on Soyuz TM-21. Both of these missions also went to Mir. During that last mission, Strekalov got in hot water with the new Russian Space Agency, or RKA. For context, it's only been Roscosmos since 2004. What happened was they ordered him to just, no planning, no training, just go outside and fix a solar panel. A very dangerous and completely unplanned spacewalk. He refused, and spent the next several days arguing with Mission Control, just saying like, no, you're not sending me out there. No, you're not sending any of my crew out there. They're going to fucking die.
I mean, it's not that hard. Just don't let go.
Just hit it with a hammer a whole bunch. And they finally let the matter drop. But when he landed, they fined him $10,000 for refusing orders. Thankfully, though, he was able to get that overturned in court. And then he went back to work at RSC Energia, who were the same people who tried to fine him $10,000. And he stayed there until his death in 2004. Pretty cool dude, I think.
Huh.
Yeah. I also want to take a second to talk about the attempted cover-up of the launch failure and how outside observers forced the Soviets to fess up. A lot of this is actually because legendary space journalist James Oberg commented on the article by Drew LePage that I sourced. So, there's a lesson for you kids. Always check the comments. There's always going to be good stuff in there. Just scroll down. Scroll down to our comments.
Just get in there.
Have some fun. Get in the slop. Basically, observers on the ground were able to watch Salyut 7 in orbit, and they could see that it was making maneuvers. It was changing its orientation. It was altering its orbit slightly to be in the right place at the right time for a rendezvous and docking. It was getting ready to accept a new spacecraft. And this was a pretty clear sign that there was going to be a crewed launch soon. When nothing happened, Oberg asked a contact at NORAD for any additional information, and they stonewalled him. To get around this, he forced the issue by getting various journalists to poke their contacts at like the DoD and the military, all at the same time about a Soviet launch failure. And this forced a bunch of these DoD guys to confirm that they had observed a launch failure, which then forced the Soviets to come clean. Years later, Oberg was even able to track down Alexei Shumilin, the launch director of Soyuz T-10A. Quoting James, by 1995, Shumilin had been promoted to commander of the entire cosmodrome. On a visit there, we met, and he confirmed to me his role in personally running down a corridor to the alternate command panel to push the backup button. With structural collapse of one corner, the Soyuz rocket had already begun to tilt over and was seconds from collapse and full fuel load detonation. So that is another thing to mention. Whenever they fire the LES, the Soyuz is already, it is in the process of falling on its side. They go off at, an oblique angle. And another fun little thing Oberg was able to do while Titov and Strekalov were in Houston as part of just, general space cooperation, he was able to arrange a meeting with Maxime Faget, a NASA engineer who was actually the inventor of launch escape systems. So they gave him a bunch of drinks, they thanked him for saving their lives, and they even gave him a little medal, which I thought was also cute.
Nice to be recognized for your work.
Yeah. I believe 4 people in history have used or ridden launch escape systems so far. Unfortunately, there is a disaster that we will talk about in the future. Launch escape systems erroneously going off have killed 3 people on the ground. So launch escape systems are at +1 at the moment. Although I do think there was the 2018 one. So I think that, they might be at a 50-50. They might be at a 2-to-1 saved versus killed ratio right now.
I'm thinking about the fucked up, skewed statistics perspective of the bureaucracy being well, technically the launch escape system has killed more people than it has saved. So therefore we're just not going to put one on the thing.
We cannot save you because the odds are that you will kill more people through doing this.
Astronauts yearn for the obliterator.
But yeah, that is the story of Soyuz T-10A, a near disaster, the cool technology that prevented it, and the really fucking stupid way of activating that technology that nearly caused it to happen anyway. How do we all feel?
Not bad.
Nice.
I'm glad to have a story that doesn't, turn into ultra death.
Yeah, there's honestly not as many of those in rocketry as I would like. I don't want near disasters, but I don't want more disasters than near disasters, if that makes sense.
Do not feed the hypergalls.
Yeah, don't take a hydrazine bath.
No.
All I'm thinking about, Gwen, is
the ground crew rushing the rocket and Capri sunning all of the kerosene out of it before the fire can reach it, because that's me too.
Yes. Here is the manic Yevgeny factory theme.
Oh, dodge.
Is this just going to be, oh, yeah.
This is the best one.
Naturally, I have an ad.
Hell yeah.
Every time we talk about some Soviet fuckery, I think about this.
You think about
I think
workers
about
and
manically
resources.
pacing back and forth in an office because something is going wrong. And the commission is going to come from my head unless I can figure out what the problem is.
Or who to blame it on.
The mental image of like an entire closed city dedicated to cloning Evgeny.
Yes. And who's in charge of that? And someone might come for his head too if he doesn't do his job right of making the Evgeny clone factory operate at peak performance.
It's the original Evgeny. He's the master of it all.
The Yevgeny clone factory, but they're like running low on quotas, so they have to produce a bunch of subpar Yevgenys. If you look at his fingers and toes together, there's 10 of them. What more could you want?
Couple of his limbs are vestigial, but
Yeah, but that's extras.
Q&A with Robin.
So we are now into our Q&A segment, which is what happens whenever we have someone who actually knows what they're talking about and has a field in the industry that we feel that you, the listener, should know about, because you're ignorant as fuck otherwise.
Just denigrate the listener.
This is, of course, accepting the industry listeners who I know we have, and the guest right now who is also a listener. And yeah,
it's true.
We do have a lot of people who work in the space industry.
Yeah, people who work in the space industry tend to be fans of the space industry.
Yeah. But it always does kind of I've got like 5 years, I've got like 4 real years in industry, and my field is parachutes. Who the hell am I to tell like actual specialists what their field is?
I have 5 years and
exactly seniority.
I got 2 years in air traffic control communication, 5 years in space ground system instrumentation, and 2 years in nuclear power plants. So,
holy.
I should have picked a nuclear. Well, no, a nuclear disaster wouldn't have been fun. Not a space one.
Yeah, well, there's plenty of as I've been reading about Project Orion.
Yes,
there's plenty of things that never happened, but the wacky nuclear antics. Plus you have the same crew that Jack Parsons hung out with. I forget the name of their gang.
Did they do they were the Suicide Squad? Did they wind up like doing something like Pluto or like a nuclear thermal?
I think a couple of them were involved in nuclear thermal propulsion. So I think it was
Project Slam.
Tori
was the propulsion for Slam.
I think it was Nerva.
Oh, ooh.
Or it was the one before Nerva. Hold on, I might have that actually. Project Rover.
Okay, I don't think I've heard of Rover. I've definitely heard of Nerva.
Yeah, it's one of it. They played a role in it, and then Freeman Dyson was involved in Project Orion.
Wow.
And Ted Taylor, I want to say.
Okay.
A lot of Los Alamos guys.
I got to look more into this because we're definitely going to be talking about Nerva at some point.
Oh, I love me some nuclear.
And just we talked about Nicholas Christophilos. What was the name of his project? Argos?
Operation Argus.
Operation Argus. Okay, I'm sorry. But yeah, just that 1950s like Fallout-esque enthusiasm for the atom is like, we can do anything with this. We can build a death cloud over America. We can dig a port with a nuclear bomb. Let's just do it.
Plowshare was amazing, especially because I'm pretty sure they lost a device.
But yeah, I guess we can get into some Q&A questions for you, Robin, because we have asked our fans, we have asked the Discord and the patrons, what kind of, and this time I did a good job and I actually adequately and accurately described your job so that people aren't asking the wrong questions. But yeah, I've got a couple of questions here from fans, just kind of about your work, things you've seen. So the first one here is, what did you expect to be the most difficult part of your job, and what did it actually turn out to be?
I thought the most difficult part of my job was going to be launch operations during countdown, because the idea that going into this, always had the idea of like, oh, that's 48 hours of just pure chaos. It turned out it was 48 hours of organized chaos and a lot of sitting in chairs, unless you were part of like the red crew that went out there, which did happen the night we launched. The red crew had to go out there, and I think it was a valve. There was another hydrogen leak.
Oh, okay.
Artemis had a couple of, we scrubbed, I think, twice because of hydrogen leaks in August and September of 2022. and then rolled back because of a hurricane.
Right.
Actually, no, we didn't roll back because of the hurricane. We rolled back to fix the leak, sent the vehicle back out there,
I think
and
braved
left it
the
there for the
hurricane.
hurricane.
Yeah.
And this is when I got in trouble with NASA PR, which I can talk about later. The hardest part of my job was NASA PR. No, I'm joking.
PR like public relations?
Public relations, yeah, because I tweeted things and they were like, and then Ars Technica quoted me.
Oh no.
Yeah. So the hardest part was, I almost want to say it was the bureaucracy, but that you kind of just got used to it after a while of working with the government, but the US government, I should say. Yeah, the hardest part was definitely just getting everything through the process, staying on schedule, actually accomplishing the milestones in a timely manner. Because if one thing goes wrong, you rightfully initiate an entire process that causes a delay.
Yep.
And if there's one thing the Artemis program is known for, it's delays. So, lovingly.
It flew on its first time.
It did. Third attempt, but yes.
Oh, yeah.
But, scrubs, I think there's another question about like scrubs, and we can talk more about that later. But
Okay.
scrubs are normal. Scrubs are good. So,
better not to force it. Better to wait.
yeah, we don't need to force it. We don't need to just go at this like it's a right stuff project. No, this is too many people have gotten hurt or lost their lives to just to launch on August 29th or something, right? So
And there definitely is like there's a strong kind of like people oh come on, they'll treat it as almost like wimpiness that a scrub happens. And I always just think of it as like, imagine if you're getting on a plane and you hear the captain come over the PA and say like, we're experiencing some technical difficulties, but I'm feeling this one, so we're just gonna go.
But Quinn, that's an institutional problem again. Remember,
Well, yeah.
I mean, I know
Yeah,
that you
he's
know
allowed
this,
to.
but it's like that there's going to be that guy who doesn't appreciate the concept of like, if you think maintenance is expensive, try having an accident. And
Yeah.
then it's like, I'd rather lose $100 million of aircraft than perform $1 million of maintenance on it every so often. Like, who cares? I'm a genius. I'm a smart guy. I went to school for business.
Well, it's because people always forget, like, whenever a disaster happens, whenever an accident happens, people have like this period where they are aware of it and then they just forget, and they forget that accidents can happen. So whenever you go to them with like preventative maintenance and stuff like that, they're just saying like, well, there hasn't been nothing has broken in the past month, therefore nothing will ever get broken.
yeah, because that's how the bathtub curve works.
Yeah.
It's just an infinite bathtub. It never goes back up. The failure rate never increases.
Pain.
All right, so question 2 for you. What is a weirdly annoying thing to measure or deal with in your work? And it doesn't necessarily have to be difficult, just annoying.
So for me, I worked on the weather instrumentation subsystem, which was the ground system. So a different guest in a previous episode, which is actually the episode that got me to join the Discord, was during you were talking about launch weather and like launch commit criteria.
Yeah.
Yeah, Tenki. And Tenki talked about the various measurements that go into and the measurement systems that are out at like KSC, Kennedy Space Center. So you have the Merlin lightning detection system, which is more Cape Canaveral Space Force Station, but ours was strictly within the perimeter of LC-39B. And so ours was on the 3 lightning towers at 4 different levels. We would have wind speed, wind direction, humidity, relative humidity, and temperature. And at the very top at level E, which these were like 400 plus foot lightning towers, near the very top at level E was 2 high-speed cameras. So if you've ever watched like slow-mo guys on YouTube, it's those same phantom cameras. So we would have 2 of them at slightly different angles. So on all 3 towers, we would get a full view of the launch pad. The hardest thing, and then you had the down conductor lines that from the launch lightning protection system that ran between all 3 towers and with several connections in the middle, with a hole in the center for the vehicle to launch through. Right?
Okay.
It's just a net of really thick steel cable with 9 down conductors that would attach at the ground. We would measure those down conductors. So the hardest part, everything on the lightning towers, it's a pain to maintain because half the time the elevators on those lightning towers don't work.
Oh, okay.
They were installed near the end of the shuttle era, and they're just poorly maintained. And the weather out there, the environment is extremely salty, extremely wet all the time. So they break down. You get weather issues. Anything that's out there full time has an issue. But it was the down conductors, because if you ever needed to, that we would measure the current on them. So on all 9, we'd measure the current. We could triangulate lightning strikes to the down current or lightning protection system based on the 9 different current levels.
All right, cool.
Changing those required you to remove the down conductor. So if you needed, so we were installing after Artemis 1, part of the ground construction for Artemis 2 before I left Florida was we were installing a 10th down conductor, and we learned that they went ahead and installed the down conductor before we installed our current sensor. If you've ever seen one of those, it's a big box with a hole in the middle. Some of them are hinged. The one we were using was not. So you had to run the cable through it before installing the cable and tightening down to the ground. This is like a 3-inch, 4-inch thick steel cable.
Yep.
And that one's the most annoying, is whenever we had to perform maintenance or something was wrong on those. In this case, with down conductor 10, they installed the cable and lashed it down to the ground before we installed the sensor. So they had to come back, undo it all. Giant steel cable hangs loose while we run a current sensor through it and then retighten it down.
Right.
Which was just a pain.
So,
Yeah, that one's the most annoying. Not because it's hard to measure, but because it's hard to maintain.
Gotcha. All right. So, third question here, and this is kind of more specific to your work as opposed to being open-ended, but from a new sensor or piece of hardware being identified as needed, what would you expect to be like the full time from like identification, requests, procurement, all the way to testing and operation, as well as what kind of roadblocks would you expect to see as part of that work?
Okay, so the design cycle, identifying a need, developing your requirements, going through procurement, testing, integrated checkout or installation checkout, on-site V&V, depending on the level of criticality of the component, you would do V&V acceptance testing. And then you'd run it through. That could take a year.
Gotcha.
That could take, it really depends on the component though.
Gotcha.
So if it's an in-work design, it's not installed in the field yet, you can make changes to it and add things pre-testing pretty quickly.
Okay.
Like almost on the spot. So there were changes we were making to the WX system that for Artemis 2, that we had we had the design open, so we could make changes that as long as it was within our scope.
Gotcha.
Budget willing, right? So in buying 9 new Phantom cameras, for example, was something we could do because one, the design was already tested. We were really just buying replacements. Replacing something in a design took less time than starting over. And if we went with like a hydrogen detection sensor for the HAZGAS system, so imagine any of the many hydrogen leak detection systems throughout the vehicle and the launch tower. If you needed to install a new one, you would go through probably easily 6 months of work just to get up to that point. If you pull the right strings, maybe faster, but you'd have to go through structural testing, especially if it's on the tower. Structural testing. If it's electronic, probably EMI testing.
Right.
And all of those take months, just because of how long it takes. Because we could do our own EMI testing on site, but that was still like there was a queue for testing. It just took time. So.
Gotcha. Oh, like they've got the EMI lab and then everybody's trying to get their stuff in there. Okay.
Vibration testing, shaker table testing. Everyone was lined up to get into those. So it just took time to get in on those. Thermal testing in our thermal testing lab, hydraulic testing. We can do all that on site. It just took time. But it was considerably less expensive than going to a vendor who provided that service. If you were able to if for whatever the part was, if you were able to purchase something that was already qualified, you pay a bit more, but you save some time. So you had to take all of this into account within the schedule and timeline to be able to meet your milestone, to achieve the milestone.
Nice. All right. Fourth question for you. Without breaking NDAs, what is the single dumbest or funniest reason you have either encountered or heard of for a launch scrub? Doesn't have to be what you've worked on directly, just out in the ether.
So I've heard, weather scrubs they're anticlimactic, but I wouldn't consider them dumb.
Right.
You can't control the weather, no matter what a certain representative from Georgia seems to think. But they just are what they are, right? And I like seeing my system work, and all the other weather systems from like the Eastern Range and the 45th, 43rd. I always forget the number. Space Wing, Weather Squadron. Excuse me, Space Wing. Where did I even get that from? The dumbest ones are when I've heard, especially in the shuttle era, from coworkers that if a private aircraft flies into launch airspace, you could be delayed 10, 20 minutes. And if you're at the end of your launch window and you don't have 10, 20 minutes to wait for someone's Cessna to leave the airspace, then you could scrub for the day. And I'd heard that, I don't think I've ever heard of a scrub happening because of that, but there is, and I looked it up just to be sure which launch it was, but it was shuttle launch. I didn't write it down. Shoot.
No worries.
There was a shuttle launch where that exact thing happened. I want to say it was the one right before Challenger that had 6 scrubs before they launched.
Jesus Christ.
And one of them was, I believe one of them was because of I almost said rogue aircraft. No, it was just a private aircraft. I tried to find what aircraft it was, but nobody wrote it down apparently. So.
And yeah, like that tiny little delay, that tiny little mistake, or like someone not checking their maps and whatnot is, costing tens of millions of dollars just for like a delay for everything to be stopped, torn down, reset the next day. Yeah, just.
Yeah. I think the dumbest scrub that I experienced, I only experienced 2, but it was the first one on August 29th for Artemis 1, and it was a midnight launch. It was like a 2 a.m. launch. So got home from work, took a nap, and then went and got some food, drove to get some food, and then head back out to the Space Center. I got in a car accident that same evening, like on my way to go to Publix to get food. That's the grocery store chain down in the South. To go to Publix, grab like a pub sub and head out. I got in a car accident. I'm just like, this is my luck. The night we launch, I get in a car accident. This is not a good omen. So I'm already a little pissed off. I get to work. I'm in the LCC, Launch Control Complex, and coworkers are like, "You're a little late. What's going on?" I was like, "I got in a car accident." And we're sitting there waiting. Weather relatively fine. It's August in Florida, so there's constantly something violating the commit criteria, and then it would pass, and then we get down to it, and there's a hydrogen leak, because of course there is. You had to pick something that would leak, it's going to be the smallest atom, right?
Yeah.
So, and that ended up scrubbing us. So I went home. I ended up staying overnight and just waiting until work, and then I left the next morning. All of that just for a scrub from a hydrogen leak.
I mean, whenever you get down to it, like how many teams are involved, and like any one issue is enough to scrub. Like it's like so completely out of your hands whether or not it's actually going to launch at that point.
Yeah. And I should note, I wasn't on shift that evening. I was on shift on a day shift, and I was just coming back to support. For anybody who catches me on the breaking the no 8 hours of rest between shifts rule. I was not technically on shift. I was just there. We all were.
So we got one final question. This is a bit of a fun one. I am actually going to put this to the entire group. But Robin, you can go first. If you could destroy any one satellite, I'm going to say historical or modern. It can be active, it can be not, and you get to choose the method. Which satellite would you destroy? How would you destroy it, and why?
This is a hard question because you're having to make me think about specific
Tell you what, at the risk of complicating this more, or maybe making it easier, I'm gonna say it does not have to be an artificial satellite. It can just be a celestial body out there.
It just knocks Ceres out of orbit for no fucking reason.
I want to do the Expanse. I want to throw Eros into Venus and see what happens.
I would just absolutely, that's the ultimate rods from God right there. So I prepared for this one. If I could destroy it in the ship of Theseus way by taking it apart a bit by bit and then keeping it in my closet for the rest of time, it's going to be Tyros 1, which was the first weather satellite. I don't remember. It's still in orbit.
Okay.
It's not functional anymore, but if it was something I can be extremely petty about, it's going to be MonacoSat. MonacoSat is, because I went and looked up what countries only have one satellite.
Oh.
If I had to pick one satellite, so it was countries like Colombia, Argentina. I'm like, okay.
There's punching down and then there's punching up.
Yeah, there's punching out. And then there's Monaco, right? It's like one of the nation with one of like the single highest concentration millionaires. It was, it's their only satellite. Unfortunately, it's also Turkmenistan's only satellite.
Oh no.
Because they share. So unfortunately, Turkmenistan's going to take an L on this one. But I would absolutely destroy MonacoSat. But what are they using? It's a communication satellite. What are they doing? Watching Formula One?
Yeah.
Like they don't need it. If they want a satellite so bad, they can go and join France or Italy and let them have that tax revenue for their space program.
We should take all of the wealth of Monaco and push it somewhere else.
As they launch it, we should push it into another orbit. We will deorbit.
It's the Turkmen's turn to have the millions of dollars.
Yeah, we simply need to take Monaco and put it in Turkmenistan.
Yeah, that would solve that.
Yeah. Chris's, do you guys have any fun ideas for satellites, artificial or otherwise, that you want to whack out of orbit?
Mine is monkey's paw. But unfortunately, I'm going fictitious with this one.
Okay, I'll accept that.
I would destroy Ulysses 1994 XF04.
Okay.
Oh, of course.
I would prevent Kessler syndrome from happening, and then Ace Combat will never happen.
Oh my god.
Yeah, Ace Combat. No one gets super weapons anymore. Okay, no, that's a good one.
Yuktobanians still developed Project Chandelier.
Well, yeah, all of that stuff would still happen.
That wasn't
it just
the Yuktobanians, that was the Estevakians, and they never finished it because they were broke.
Audience, Chris, can you guess that we have been studying Ace Combat for a bonus episode coming up?
Oh, man.
I didn't grow up on it or something. It's not like it's a special intro.
Oh, no, it was mine. It was mine, too. Ace Combat X was my first, and I really liked it.
For me, it was 0.
All the music and all of them. Anyway, I am Keiki Kobayashi. Come on the show. We will just talk about how good you are.
Oh my god.
But for me, I don't really have like one that I was super fixated on. Part of it for me was I just wanted like, oh, you know, there's it would definitely have to be Soviet. It would have to have a Cosmos number. So I looked up Cosmos 666.
The Satan satellite?
But then it really lined up with our another episode we did recently, because this thing launches out of Plesetsk. It is a Soviet intelligence satellite, and it is one of the satellites it's a Zenit satellite.
Oh, it's a ball.
It's a modified Vostok spacecraft where they just took out all of the Yuri and they put a camera in there. And that was
they took all of the Yuri out and just left the alley.
It's just Yevgeny with a Polaroid.
and yeah, like I would like I would pick that one just because it's got the 666 number, and why not? I would bring it down here and put it in my yard.
You wouldn't blow up the one that spewed nuclear spooge all over Canada?
Well, just gently push it.
The Roarsat satellites that worked properly spooged nuclear stuff all over orbit that is still up there.
Oh, lovely.
Just slap 954 a little bit higher so it lands in Russia proper.
Oh, yeah. If it's going to land anywhere, it's landing in, like, Soviet territory.
Their horrible boy coming home.
But But yeah, probably, yeah, I'd say Cosmos 666 just because it's the closest you could get to like a Vostok these days. Then again, Bions still exist. I don't know. I'm sticking with my answer.
Listen, you don't want to destroy Bion. That thing is containing like the most viciously evolved tardigrades
Opening it up and
planet.
tragically finding out that all of the gerbils have been asphyxiated by their fruit roll-up. I want to find out that this is actually the hidden cause of all of the astronaut deaths. Like, what they are not telling us is that 70% of space travelers are immediately asphyxiated by their space food.
We have no idea how we could possibly change the food to make it safer, but they're all dying to their food.
Looking at the food group triangle, and it's just fruit by the foot, the entire triangle. Like, guys, I don't know.
I can only get so erect.
But yeah, Robin, thank you so much for coming on the show. I hope you've enjoyed this. Thank you for answering all of these Q&A questions from our listeners. Is there anything that you would like to plug, whether that be your Ars Technica?
No.
No, just immediately no.
Oh, I never did finish that story. It was after, I think it was Hurricane Nicole blew through Florida. We left Artemis out on the pad because it's clearly one of our best ideas.
Uh-huh.
And my system, because all of our data is public, it is published online. Everyone can access it. Bit of a delay, but it was already published that at I think it was the 200-ish foot level of one of our launch towers, we experienced 100 knots of wind.
Jesus Christ.
So one thing is, it wasn't clear what the measurements, unit of measurement was on the website. So people interpret that as 100 miles per hour, which 100 knots is something like 80 something miles per hour, if I remember correctly.
Sorry, it goes the other way. It would be like 110 or something like that.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so we did get over 100 miles. We got about 100 miles per hour, whatever knots.
Ooh.
And people were like, that's against the launch commit criteria for weather. They're going to have to roll back the vehicle. And so I tweeted in response, because it was all happening on Twitter at the time. And I just respond direct quoting the publicly released data and interpreting it correctly. I'm like, yes, we did receive that weather, but it was at it's like the 203, or no, it was at like it was at the 400 foot level on the towers, which is above the vehicle.
Right.
So it was one of those, like, it's probably fine. But Ars Technica quoted me on that. And then NASA PR thought I had shared private data, because like headquarters in DC thought I had shared private data to Ars Technica. And so that launched an investigation of my Twitter account.
What?
That everybody from my manager to the general manager of the TOS contract to, because I was a contractor, not a civil servant, and of TOS up through some random people in NASA PR in DC. I like to think Bill Nelson himself was looking at my Twitter.
Scrolling through.
Yeah, I pissed off NASA PR one time.
Nice.
And had my Twitter investigated. So they got to see all my hot takes on everything, especially everything Florida related.
Now we have found that you did not share classified information. However, your takes,
they're ass. And,
get out, clear your desks, come back with better takes. Moving on.
Yep.
That is the absolute like worst kind. Like, if there is an investigation that doesn't turn up what it's looking for, but incidentally also finds all of your normal weird stuff, I live in terror of that.
Yeah, I have since deleted my Twitter.
But yeah, again, Robin, thank you so much for coming on. Thank you for lending your expertise as well as talking about our history topic today.
Yeah, I had a lot of fun. Dare I say it was a blast. And so I'm glad I could share a little bit of what I do, and hopefully the listeners. I'm in the Discord, so if anybody has any questions, feel free to post. But if you're not in the Discord, go to patreon.com/failure to launch and
join it.
That
was not pre-planned. That was.
Yeah, I don't have a plug, so I was just like, I'll just plug you guys. Why not? And
I don't know.
yeah.
Are there any other science or space shows that you listen to that you think people could enjoy?
No, this is the only one that exists.
Okay, no, good, good.
Yeah, you have no competitors at all. No, I mostly listen to engineering or otherwise failure podcasts nowadays. So it's and I'm sure the listeners are probably already listening to all those. So
That's fair.
they drill safety mindset into us. Like with the first day I got there at Kennedy Space Center, they plopped down the Challenger report on my desk and I read it. And then they made me go do a tour of what was left of Columbia in the VAB
Fuck.
that they have locked away. So they drill it into us. So I guess I have a very morose sense of humor when it comes to engineering failures now.
Help, I'm extrapolating.
And it definitely makes sense, you know, like, to hammer it into people.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, listener, this has been Failure to Launch. Goodbye.
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 Thank you to everyone who have signed up to support the show. And a big shout out to all of our top tier patrons. Our cyborg cats are August Sun, Boss, Tiger Reptile, Charlie, Comrade Sleepy Bro, Daniel F, David R, Jesslyn T, Jorg 2, The Fengyun Death Cloud, Lane of the Wired, Matt, Mobius Striptease, Mysterious Stranger, Nerd Beast, Noah, Number Negative, Oil Drum, Pat, Paul C, Space Northpaw, Spectre Cohen, Tortilla Baron, and Vivek D. Our space dogs are a Union Thug, AB, That Guy is Best Guy, Agent Carter, Angie, Angry Old Man, Yada Yada, Anthony C, Otto Fox, Baron M, Ben L, Boomzilla, Cantaloupe Was Taken, Chainsaw Snuggling, Charles G, Cole C, Captain Lag, CSD 2016, Daddy Bongo, Double Time, Dr. Shockmaster, Ank, Aaron, Eric J, Fractal Moonlight, Furious Luddite, Grant K, Heiko S, Ian R, Ian W, JM M, James C, Jamie K, Jarl Breadmaker, Jerry M, John C, Johntastic 20x6, Juan Carathaga, Delenda Est, Kate D, Corbin the Dog, Lenswipe, Lorgath, M, McLean C, Mar, Martho, Maritza, Narrow Ebb, Nicholas S, Nick, Norman W, Northeast Driver, Panda, PB, Randall, Sam A, Serena P, Sean H, Central Kazoo, Shannon M, Sean P, Sophie L, Sparks, Spirit of Thunder, That Big Sexy, The Best Sean, Tom M, Tim P, Toasty Ken, Trash Do, Virash T, Frisk, Will W, Wingsmith, Zaf, Zim, and Zombie Dwarf. Albert Count, 122. Thank you for listening to another episode of Failure to Launch. If you want to follow us, we are Failure to Launch on Blue Sky and FT Launch Pod on Instagram. We also post our episodes with visual aids at Failure to Launch Podcast on YouTube. FTL intro and outro themes were provided by DJ Danarchy.